Lightning split the Lagos sky as Adana Okafor's fingers trembled over her phone screen. The silk robe clung to her dark skin, and her heart pounded with anticipation mixed with desperation. 3 days. 3 days since Tobias had been home. 3 days of sleeping alone in their king-size bed, staring at the ceiling of their Victoria Island penthouse, wondering when her husband had become a stranger. She typed the message quickly, before courage could abandon her. "Baby, I'm not wearing anything. I've been waiting for you all night. Come home to me." Her thumb hovered over the send button. This was it. One last attempt to salvage what remained of their 2-year marriage. One last try to feel wanted, desired, loved. She pressed send. The message whooshed into the digital void. Adana set the phone down on the marble nightstand and waited, her stomach tight with nervous energy. Outside, rain began to hammer against the floor-to-ceiling windows. She pulled her knees to her chest, remembering their wedding day. How Tobias had looked at her then, like she was the only woman in the world. How his promises had sounded so sincere under the white wedding canopy, surrounded by family and friends. How naive she'd been. 7,000 miles away in Busan, South Korea, Kong Jaewon stood at the window of his penthouse, watching the city lights blur against the night. At 32, he commanded the Biko Syndicate with an iron fist, arms trafficking, strategic operations, political leverage. His empire stretched from Seoul to Singapore, from Tokyo to Lagos. His phone buzzed on the glass desk behind him. Unknown number. Lagos, Nigeria. He almost ignored it. Almost. But something made him pick it up. Maybe it was the timing. Maybe it was fate disguised as curiosity. His dark eyes scanned the message, and for the first time in 5 years, since the night his fiancée was murdered in front of him, Kong Jaewon smiled. The scar running down his left cheek pulled tight as he typed back, "You have the wrong number. But I'm curious. Who waits for a man who makes you this desperate?" In Lagos, Adana's phone lit up. Her heart stopped. She grabbed it, seeing the response, and mortification flooded through her like ice water. Wrong number. She transposed a digit when copying Tobias's new work phone number from the business card on his desk. "Oh God, I'm so sorry." She typed frantically. "That wasn't meant for you. Please delete it and forget this ever happened." The response came almost immediately. "Why would I delete the most interesting message I've received in years? Tell me about him. This man who makes you wait." Adana should have blocked the number. Should have thrown her phone across the room. Should have done anything except what she did next, she answered. "He's my husband. And he's been gone for 3 days on a business trip. At least, that's what he tells me." In his penthouse, Jaewon's interest sharpened. He gestured to Min Soo-jin, his second-in-command, who stood near the door reviewing security reports. Soo-jin approached, her short black hair framing a face that had seen too much violence for her 29 years. "Get Yun," Jaewon said quietly. "I need a trace on this number." "Boss, is this wise?" Soo-jin's voice carried warning. "We have the Crimson Lotus situation to handle. Lady Han is moving weapons through West Africa. We don't need distractions. Just do it." 10 minutes later, Yun burst into the office, his laptop already open, fingers flying across the keyboard. The young tech specialist's face was illuminated by the screen's glow as he worked his magic through firewalls and encrypted networks. "Got it," Yun said finally. Adana Okafor, 28, systems analyst. Lives in Victoria Island, Lagos. Clean record. But boss. He paused, his face going pale. "Her husband is Tobias Okafor." Jaewon's expression turned to stone. "Show me." Yun pulled up file after file. Tobias Okafor, 35, officially an import-export consultant. Unofficially, an undercover operative for Lady Han Yuri's Crimson Lotus cartel. The man had been feeding intelligence from West Africa directly to Jaewon's most dangerous rival. Bank transfers, weapon manifests, shipping routes, all of it flowing from Lagos to Seoul, designed to destroy the Biko Syndicate from the inside. "There's more," Yun continued, pulling up surveillance photos. "He has a mistress here in Seoul. Han Mireille, Lady Han's younger sister." The photos showed Tobias and Mireille at expensive restaurants, luxury hotels, wrapped in each other's arms. In one image, they were kissing outside a jewelry store. In another, Mireille wore an engagement ring. "Does she know?" Jaewon asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "The wife?" Soo-jin shook her head. "No indication. From what we can tell, she's completely in the dark. He married her 2 years ago as cover. Perfect businessman persona. Beautiful wife, legitimate address, clean background." Jaewon stared at Adana's photo on the screen. She was stunning, with warm brown eyes and natural hair that framed her face in soft curls. But it was something else that caught him, a sadness behind her smile in every photo, even in her wedding pictures. A loneliness he recognized because he saw it in his own mirror every morning. What do you want to do? Sujin asked. I'm going to tell her the truth. That's insane. She's married to our enemy. This could be a trap. Look at her, Sujin. Jaiwan turned the laptop screen toward his friend. Does she look like someone who knows her husband is a spy? She's an innocent woman caught in someone else's war. Since when do you care about innocent bystanders? The question hung in the air. Since never really. Jaiwan had built his empire on cold calculations and strategic ruthlessness. Empathy was a luxury he couldn't afford. But something about that text message, that raw vulnerability, that desperate hope, had cracked something open inside him that he'd thought was sealed forever. Back in Lagos, Adana couldn't stop texting the mysterious stranger. She knew it was reckless, possibly stupid. But for the first time in months, someone was actually talking to her. Listening to her. Responding like her words mattered. Do you love him? The stranger asked. Adana stared at the question for a long time before typing. I thought I did. Now I don't know if I ever really knew him at all. What makes you say that? He's changed. Or maybe I'm finally seeing who he always was. He's distant. Cold. He gets phone calls at odd hours and leaves the room. He has a second phone he thinks I don't know about. When I try to talk to him, he makes me feel crazy for asking questions. You're not crazy. Trust your instincts. Something about those words made tears spring to Adana's eyes. When was the last time someone had validated her feelings instead of dismissing them? When had Tobias last made her feel heard instead of hysterical? Who are you? She typed. A long pause. Then, someone who knows what it's like to be betrayed by someone you trusted completely. What happened? I lost someone I loved because I didn't see the danger until it was too late. I won't make that mistake again. The conversation continued deep into the Lagos night. Adana told him about her dreams of building Africa's tech infrastructure, about her master's degree in systems analysis that Tobias had dismissed as cute, about wanting children someday with a man who actually came home. The stranger told her about loss and loyalty, about building something from nothing, about the weight of protecting people who depended on him. Neither revealed their names. Neither mentioned their worlds. For those few hours, they were just two lonely people finding unexpected connection across 7,000 miles. When dawn broke over Lagos, Adana finally asked, "Why are you being so kind to a stranger who sent you an embarrassing text by mistake?" The response came after a long pause. Maybe some mistakes are actually fate in disguise. Adana smiled for the first time in weeks. But then her bedroom door opened, and Tobias walked in, looking exhausted and smelling of unfamiliar perfume. You're awake early, he said, not quite meeting her eyes. You're home late, Adana replied, clutching her phone. How is Seoul? Something flickered across Tobias's face. Surprise, suspicion, calculation. How did you know I was in Seoul? You told me. Before you left. She hadn't, but she was testing him. Right. Of course. He loosened his tie. It was productive. Closed a big deal. I brought you something. He handed her a jewelry box. Inside was a diamond bracelet that probably cost more than most Nigerians earned in a year. Guilt gift, Adana thought. She'd been getting a lot of those lately. It's beautiful, she said flatly. You don't sound excited. I'm tired, Tobias. I've been waiting for you. I texted you I'd be delayed. That was 2 days ago. He sighed, that condescending sound that made her feel small. Adana, we've talked about this. My work is demanding. I can't always be available. You knew this when you married me. I knew I was marrying a man who loved me. I didn't know I was marrying a ghost. Tobias's jaw tightened. I don't have time for this drama. I have calls to make. He disappeared into his study, locking the door behind him. Adana sat on the bed, the expensive bracelet forgotten in her lap. Her phone buzzed. The stranger. Are you all right? You stopped responding. She typed quickly. He just came home, smelling like another woman's perfume, with expensive jewelry to make me forget he's been gone for 3 days. Adana. It was the first time he'd used her name, and seeing it on her screen sent a strange shiver through her. I need to tell you something. Your husband isn't who you think he is. Her blood ran cold. What do you mean? Who are you? My name is Jaiwan, and I'm going to send you something. What you do with it is your choice. But you deserve to know the truth. The files came through encrypted messages. Photos of Tobias with a beautiful Korean woman, kissing, embracing, shopping for rings. Bank statements showing massive transfers to offshore accounts. Documents with corporate logos Adana didn't recognize, but the numbers were staggering. And finally, surveillance photos of Tobias meeting with heavily armed men, one clearly showing a tattoo on a man's neck, a crimson lotus flower. Adana's hands shook so violently she nearly dropped the phone. She ran to the bathroom and vomited, her entire world fragmenting into pieces too sharp to reassemble. When she could breathe again, she splashed cold water on her face and stared at her reflection. Who was she? The naive woman who'd believed every lie? Or someone stronger, someone who could face the truth? She grabbed Tobias's work jacket from the chair and searched the pockets, found the second phone she'd suspected existed. No password, he was arrogant enough not to expect her to look. The messages loaded, and Adana's heart shattered completely. Mireille, when are you divorcing that African woman? I'm tired of waiting. Tobias, soon my love. Once the shipment is secured and Kong Jaiwan is eliminated, we'll have everything. The entire West African route will be ours. Then I'll be free. Mireille, your sister wants to meet me. She keeps asking about your wife. Tobias, tell her nothing. Adana is just cover. She means nothing. She's served her purpose. Adana slid down the bathroom wall, silent sobs racking her body. 2 years. 2 years of her life given to a man who saw her as a prop. A useful idiot, as he'd probably described her to his real lover. She thought of all the times she'd blamed herself for their distance, convinced herself she wasn't interesting enough, sexy enough, good enough. And all along, she'd been nothing but a costume he wore to look legitimate. Her phone buzzed again. Jaiwan. I know this is devastating. I know you have no reason to trust me. But Adana, you're in danger. The people your husband works for, they're not just criminals. They're planning something that will hurt thousands of people. And when they're done using him, they'll eliminate anyone who knows too much. Including you. Why do you care? She typed through tears. Why are you telling me this? A video call request popped up. She stared at it, knowing she should decline, knowing this was insane. But what did she have left to lose? She accepted. The face that filled her screen made her breath catch. Jaiwan was devastatingly handsome. Sharp jawline, intense dark eyes, black hair pushed back from his forehead. But it was the scar running down his cheek and the weight in his gaze that told her this was a man who'd survived things that would break most people. I'm telling you because I know what it's like to lose someone because I didn't act fast enough, Jaiwan said, his English accented but clear. 5 years ago, the woman I loved was murdered by the same people your husband works for. She found out about their operations, tried to go to the authorities. They killed her in front of me as a lesson. I won't let that happen to someone else. Not when I can prevent it. Adana stared at him, tears streaming down her face. I don't understand any of this. He's an import-export consultant. We have a normal life. How is this possible? Nothing about your life is normal, Adana. I'm sorry, but it never was. He married you specifically because you're brilliant, respected, and trustworthy. You gave him credibility. Your reputation as a systems analyst opened doors for him. Your social connections in Lagos's business community provided cover for his real activities. What activities? Jaiwan hesitated, and she saw him weighing something heavy. I'm going to be honest with you, which means I'm trusting you with information that could destroy me. Your husband is an operative for a criminal organization called the Crimson Lotus Cartel. They traffic weapons across Asia and Africa. I run a rival organization. We've been at war for years. Your husband has been feeding them intelligence about operations in West Africa, shipping routes, port security weaknesses, political connections. He's helping them plan something catastrophic. What are you? Adana whispered. Dangerous, Jaiwan said simply. But not to you. Never to you. Why should I believe anything you say? You just admitted you're a criminal. You shouldn't believe me. You should verify everything I've told you. Check his laptop. Check his bank accounts. Check the name Crimson Lotus online. Then decide if I'm lying. Adana wiped her eyes. Even if everything you're saying is true, what am I supposed to do? I can't just come to Seoul. The words hung between them, impossible and insane. What? Come to Seoul? Jaiwan repeated, leaning closer to the camera. I'll protect you. I'll show you everything. And then you can decide what you want to do. Go to the authorities, disappear, whatever you need. But Adana, if you stay there, you're at risk. If Tobias suspects you know anything, or if his employers decide you're a liability, he would never hurt me. The man you married wouldn't. But you never married that man. You married a fiction. Adana closed her eyes, feeling the weight of the decision crushing her. This was insane. Flying across the world to meet a man who admitted he was a criminal based on a wrong number text message? But what was the alternative? Stay married to a man who saw her as disposable? Wait for whatever catastrophe was coming? I need time to think, she said. You don't have much time. Whatever they're planning, it's accelerating. I can feel it. After they ended the call, Adana sat in the bathroom for another hour, trying to breathe through the panic. Finally, she emerged and went to Tobias's study. The door was locked, but she knew where he kept the spare key. In his arrogance, he'd never imagined she'd use it. The study was immaculate, as always. Tobias's laptop sat closed on the mahogany desk. She opened it, expecting a password screen. Instead, it opened directly to his email. He'd been so confident in his deception that he hadn't even bothered with basic security. The emails confirmed everything Jaiwan had told her and worse. Messages about weapon shipments disguised as agricultural equipment. Briefs on port security at Lagos's Apapa terminal. Plans for something called Operation Crimson Dawn scheduled for 2 weeks from now during an international summit in Seoul. Casualty estimates in the thousands. And running through it all, messages to Mireille about their future together, about property they'd purchased in Jeju Island, about the life they'd build once the African problem is resolved. Adana downloaded everything to an encrypted drive, her systems analyst training taking over even as her heart broke. Then she carefully restored everything to exactly how she'd found it. In the bedroom, she pulled out her laptop and booked a flight to Seoul under her maiden name, Adana Nwosu. She'd tell Tobias she was visiting her sister in London, needed space to think about their marriage. He'd be relieved, probably. More time with Mireille without having to pretend. She texted Jaiwan, I'm coming. But if this is a trap, if you hurt me, I promise you'll regret it. His response was immediate. If I hurt you, I'll deserve whatever you do to me. Send me your flight details. I'll have people watching you from the moment you leave your house until you're safe with me. Safe with you. That's an oxymoron if I've ever heard one. Perhaps. But I keep my promises, Adana. And I promise, no one will hurt you while I'm breathing. Something about those words, the fierce certainty in them, made Adana feel the first stirring of something other than despair. Not quite hope, she wasn't ready for that. But maybe the possibility of hope. The idea that she could be more than a victim of someone else's lies. She packed a small bag, careful to take nothing that would indicate she wasn't planning to return. Left a note for Tobias on the kitchen counter. Gone to London to visit Chioma. Need time to think about us. Back in a week. As she closed the apartment door behind her, Adana felt like she was stepping off a cliff into empty air. No idea if she'd fly or fall. No idea if Jaiwan was her salvation or another nightmare. But she knew with absolute certainty that staying was no longer an option. The woman who'd sent that desperate text to the wrong number was gone. Whoever she was becoming would have to be stronger, smarter, and far more dangerous than naive Adana Okafor had ever imagined. The flight to Seoul felt endless. Adana couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, couldn't stop her mind from racing through every possible outcome of this insane decision. She'd left everything, her job, her home, her entire life, based on the word of a stranger who'd admitted he was a criminal. But every time doubt crept in, she remembered Tobias's messages. She means nothing. Those 3 words had destroyed her, and somehow rebuilt her into someone capable of this leap. Incheon Airport was overwhelming, massive, gleaming, filled with travelers speaking rapid Korean. Adana felt exposed, vulnerable. She'd just cleared customs when she noticed them. 2 men in dark suits, moving with predatory grace through the crowd, their eyes locked on her. Her heart hammered against her ribs. She walked faster, weaving between tourists and business people, her small suitcase bumping against her leg. The men matched her pace. One spoke into his wrist, and Adana realized with crystal clarity that Jaiwan had been right about everything. She wasn't just a discarded wife. She was a liability that needed to be eliminated. She broke into a run, her sensible flats slapping against polished floors. Behind her, the men gave up pretense and ran too. Adana's breath came in gasps as she sprinted toward the exit, dodging luggage carts and startled passengers. She burst through automatic doors into the parking garage, the cold Seoul air hitting her like a slap. A hand grabbed her arm and she screamed, twisting away, but the grip was iron strong. She spun, ready to fight with nails and teeth in desperation, when a voice said, Adana. It's me. Jaiwan. He was taller than she'd imagined, dressed in all black, his scarred face somehow more striking in person. Behind him, Min Soo-jin and 4 other armed guards formed a protective semicircle. The 2 men who'd been chasing her skidded to a stop, reaching for concealed weapons. What happened next was brutal poetry. Jaiwan's team moved with surgical precision. Sujin disarmed one pursuer with 3 lightning-fast strikes, dropping him to the concrete. Another guard tackled the second man, a knife appearing in his hand. The whole thing lasted maybe 15 seconds, ending with both attackers unconscious and bleeding on the garage floor. "Get her in the car," Jaiwan ordered, his eyes scanning for additional threats. No. Strong hands guided Adana into a black SUV with tinted windows. She was shaking so violently her teeth chattered. Jaiwan slid in beside her, and the vehicle peeled out of the garage with 3 others following in formation. "You're safe," he said quietly, reaching for her hand. She flinched, and he immediately withdrew. "I'm sorry. I should have anticipated they'd move this quickly. They were going to kill me." Adana's voice sounded distant, shocked. "In an airport. In front of thousands of people. They were actually going to kill me. They would have made it look like an accident or a robbery. These people are professionals." Jaiwan's jaw was tight with rage. "But they failed. You're with me now." Adana looked at him, really looked at him. This man was a stranger. A criminal. Someone who'd just ordered violence as casually as most people ordered coffee. And yet, when his eyes met hers, she saw something that transcended the circumstances that brought them together. Recognition. Understanding. A connection that made no logical sense but felt more real than anything she'd experienced in years. "Thank you," she whispered. "Don't thank me yet. We still have a long way to go." The compound was hidden in the hills outside Busan, a traditional Hanok mansion surrounded by state-of-the-art security. Armed guards patrolled the perimeter, cameras covered every angle, and the main gate looked like it could withstand a tank assault. But inside, the house was surprisingly beautiful. Paper screens filtered soft light across wooden floors. A garden with a koi pond occupied the central courtyard. It was elegant, peaceful, completely at odds with the violence that had just unfolded. Sujin showed Adana to a guest room that was larger than her entire Lagos apartment. "Get some rest," the Korean woman said, her tone neutral but not unkind. "You're safe here. No one gets past our security." "Why are you helping me?" Adana asked. "You don't know me. And from what I understand, I'm connected to your enemies." Sujin studied her for a long moment. "The boss sees something in you. And I've learned to trust his instincts, even when they seem crazy. Which this definitely does." She almost smiled. "But you should know, if you betray him, if this is some elaborate trap, I'll kill you myself." "It's not a trap. I didn't even know any of this existed until 2 days ago. I believe you. Which is why you're still breathing." Sujin left, closing the door softly behind her. Adana stood in the center of the beautiful room, feeling like she'd stepped into an alternate reality. Yesterday, she'd been a systems analyst in Lagos, worried about her failing marriage and her next work presentation. Today, she was in a Korean crime lord's compound, having nearly been assassinated in an airport. The surreality of it threatened to overwhelm her. A knock on the door. "Come in," she called, expecting Sujin. It was Jaiwan, carrying a tray with tea and what looked like Korean snacks. "I thought you might be hungry. You didn't eat on the plane." "How do you know that?" "I had someone on your flight. Watching." Most women would find that creepy. Adana found it oddly comforting. "You really meant it when you said you'd protect me." "I never say things I don't mean." He set the tray on a low table and poured tea with practiced grace. "Adana, we need to talk about what happens next." She sat across from him, accepting the cup. The tea was fragrant, warming her from the inside. "Show me everything. All of it. I want to know exactly what Tobias is involved in." For the next 3 hours, Jaiwan laid it all out. Lady Han Yuri's Crimson Lotus cartel controlled weapons trafficking across East Asia and West Africa. They'd been at war with the Biko Syndicate for control of strategic routes and political influence. Tobias was one of Lady Han's most valuable assets, a perfect cover identity, positioned to gather intelligence and facilitate operations across the African continent. "But it's bigger than territory disputes now," Jaiwan said, pulling up files on his laptop. "They're planning something catastrophic. Operation Crimson Dawn. In 2 weeks, there's an international summit in Seoul, world leaders, finance ministers, tech executives. They're going to stage a terrorist attack, blame it on African extremist groups, and use the chaos to push through policies that benefit their operations. Thousands could die." Adana felt sick. "And Tobias is part of this?" "He's essential to it. He's been using your reputation and connections to gather intelligence on African political figures who'll be at the summit. Who has security details, who travels with family, who has health vulnerabilities. You were his access point, Adana. Your name opened doors. The betrayal cut deeper than the affair, deeper than the lies. He'd used her expertise, her relationships, her trust to help plan mass murder. What can we do? We? Jaiwan looked at her intently. You don't have to be part of this. I can arrange for you to disappear. New identity, protected location, financial security. You could start over, far from all of this. And let thousands of people die. Let him get away with using me as a weapon? Adana's voice hardened. No. I want to help stop this. I'm a systems analyst. I can access networks, trace communications, find vulnerabilities. Use me. Something shifted in Jaiwan's expression. Respect, admiration, something warmer. It's dangerous. If they find out you're helping us, they'll kill you. Painfully. They already tried to kill me in the airport. I'm done being afraid. Adana met his eyes. But I need to know something first. Why you? Why do you care about stopping this? You're a criminal too. You traffic weapons. How are you different from them? Jaiwan was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of old pain. 5 years ago, I was engaged to a woman named Jihai. She was a journalist, investigating corruption in the Seoul government. She stumbled onto evidence of Crimson Lotus operations, proof that they were paying off officials, manipulating elections. She was going to expose everything. He stood and walked to the window, his back to Adana. Lady Han found out. She sent people to our apartment. Made me watch while they killed Jihai. Told me it was a lesson, that this is what happens when you interfere with their business. Then they revealed that my own mentor, the man who'd built this organization, had been secretly partnering with them, using us as a front for their operations. Everything I'd built, everything I believed in, was a lie. I'm sorry, Adana said softly. After that, I took control of the Biko syndicate. Eliminated everyone loyal to my mentor. Cut all ties with Crimson Lotus. Yes, I still operate in the shadows. Yes, I've done things I'm not proud of. But I have lines I won't cross. I don't traffic drugs. I don't harm civilians. I don't stage terrorist attacks. And I don't let the people I care about become collateral damage. He turned back to her, and the intensity in his eyes made her breath catch. So when I saw that text message from you and discovered who you were married to, I saw a chance to protect someone before it was too late. To not repeat the mistake that cost Jihai her life. Maybe it was selfish. Maybe I'm trying to save you to save myself from that guilt. But Adana, I swear to you, I will not let them hurt you. Adana stood and crossed the room to him. She shouldn't trust this man. Shouldn't feel this pull toward someone so dangerous. But standing close to him, seeing the raw honesty in his scarred face, she felt safer than she'd felt in years. Then teach me, she said. Teach me how to fight. How to protect myself. How to be someone they can't hurt anymore. Over the next week, Adana's world transformed. Jaiwan was true to his word. Every morning, Sujin trained her in self-defense. How to break holds, where to strike to disable an attacker, how to move with awareness and confidence. Every afternoon, she worked with Yun, using her systems analyst expertise to hack into Tobias's encrypted communications, tracing money flows and mapping the Crimson Lotus network. And every evening, she sat with Jaiwan, planning their counter-operation. But it was the nights that changed everything. After strategy sessions and security briefings, when the compound quieted and guards changed shifts, Jaiwan would find her on the garden veranda, unable to sleep. They'd talk for hours about everything and nothing. He taught her Korean phrases. She taught him Igbo words. He told her about growing up in Busan's underground, fighting for survival. She told him about Lagos, about her dreams of building technology that would transform Africa, about the woman she'd wanted to become before Tobias made her small. You're not small, Jaiwan said one night, his fingers brushing hers on the wooden railing. You never were. He just needed you to believe it so you wouldn't see what he really was. The touch sent electricity through her skin. Adana knew she should pull away. She was technically still married, and this man was dangerous in every possible way. But when she looked at Jaiwan, she didn't see a crime lord. She saw someone who understood what it meant to survive betrayal. Someone who saw her, truly saw her, for the first time in years. I can't stop thinking about you, she whispered, the admission escaping before she could stop it. Jaiwan's hand tightened on hers. Adana, if we do this, there's no going back. My world is violent and complicated. You deserve better than what I can offer. What if I don't want better? What if I want real? He turned to face her fully, cupping her face with calloused hands. Are you sure? Because once I kiss you, once I touch you, I won't be able to let you go. You'll be mine, and I protect what's mine with everything I have. Then kiss me, she breathed. Kiss me and make me forget I was ever anyone's fool. His mouth on hers was devastating, fierce and tender, claiming and asking permission at the same time. Adana melted into him, her hands fisting in his shirt, years of loneliness and pain transforming into desperate hunger. He lifted her easily, carrying her through paper screens to his private quarters, never breaking the kiss. What followed was nothing like her cold, perfunctory encounters with Tobias. Jaiwan touched her like she was precious, like her pleasure mattered more than his own. He mapped every curve with his hands and mouth, whispering in Korean how beautiful she was, how strong, how perfectly she fit against him. When he finally entered her, Adana cried, not from pain but from the overwhelming rightness of it, the feeling of being wholly present in her own body for the first time in years. Afterward, tangled in silk sheets with Jaiwan's arms wrapped protectively around her, Adana felt something she'd thought was impossible. Hope. Not the desperate, grasping hope she'd felt sending that wrong number text, but solid, grounded hope that maybe she could build something real from the ashes of her destroyed life. "I'm falling for you," she whispered against his chest. "Is that crazy?" "If it is, then we're both insane," Jaiwan replied, pressing a kiss to her forehead. "Because I fell for you the moment you sent that text." A woman brave enough to reach out to ask for what she needed. That's rare. That's worth protecting. But the peaceful interlude shattered the next morning when Yun burst into the breakfast room, laptop in hand. "Boss, we have a problem." "Big problem." Tobias had arrived in Seoul. And he wasn't alone. Lady Han herself had mobilized her entire operation, flooding the city with operatives. Worse, Yun had intercepted communications indicating they'd moved up the timeline. The attack was scheduled for tonight, during a pre-summit gala at the Busan port, where international delegates were gathering for an informal reception. "They know," Sujin said grimly, studying the intel. "They know Adana is here. This is Lady Han forcing our hand. Attack now while we're unprepared, or let thousands die." "We contact the authorities," Adana said. "Show them the evidence. Let the police handle it." Jaiwan shook his head. "Lady Han owns half the police force. We'd be arrested before we finish the conversation. No, this ends tonight. On our terms." The next hours were a blur of preparation. Jaiwan's team mobilized. Weapons were distributed. Strategy was finalized. But there was one more complication. Tobias had gone on Korean television, playing the distraught husband. He claimed Adana had been kidnapped by a dangerous criminal organization, was being held against her will, was in desperate need of rescue. Adana watched the broadcast, rage burning through her. Even now, even knowing she'd discovered his betrayal, he was trying to control the narrative, make her the victim, himself the hero. "I want to face him," she said quietly. "Before this ends, I want him to see what he created." Jaiwan arranged it. Neutral ground, an upscale hotel, private conference room, security on both sides. Tobias arrived with Mireille, his Korean mistress, both of them confident and smiling. Their expressions shifted to shock when Adana walked in, not as a victim but as a warrior. She wore a stunning black hanbok-inspired dress that Jaiwan had commissioned for her, her natural hair styled elegantly, her eyes cold as ice. "Hello, husband," Adana said, the word dripping with contempt. "Adana, thank God." Tobias tried to approach, but Jaiwan stepped between them. "These people have brainwashed you. Whatever they've told you, don't." Adana's voice could have cut glass. "Don't you dare try to gaslight me. I know everything, Tobias. The Crimson Lotus cartel. Your engagement to Mireille. Operation Crimson Dawn. The attack you're planning for tonight. I know you married me as cover, used my reputation and connections, and planned to kill me when I was no longer useful. So please spare me the concerned husband performance." Tobias's mask slipped, revealing cold calculation underneath. "You always were smarter than you looked. I underestimated you." "Your first mistake," Jaiwan said quietly. "Your second was touching what belongs to me." Mireille laughed, a sharp sound. "Belongs to you?" "She's still legally married to Tobias. She's nothing but—" Her words cut off as she pulled a gun from her purse, aiming at Adana. But Sujin was faster, disarming and subduing the Korean woman in seconds. Tobias tried to run, pressing his wrist communicator and shouting in Korean. "He's calling it in," Yun said urgently through their earpieces. "They're moving the attack to now. Right now." They raced to Busan port in a convoy of black vehicles, Jaiwan coordinating with his teams through secure channels. The port was massive, shipping containers stacked like metal mountains, cranes towering against the night sky, and somewhere in that industrial maze, enough explosives to level several city blocks. The gala was in full swing at the port's event center. Adana could see dignitaries through the windows, elegant people in formal wear, completely unaware they were standing on top of a bomb. Lady Han's forces were already in position, Yun's drones showed operatives throughout the complex, heavily armed and waiting for the signal. We split up, Jaiwan ordered. Sujin, take your team and evacuate the gala. Make it look like a gas leak, don't cause panic. Yun, you're with Adana. Find the primary explosives and disable them. I'll handle Lady Han. Jaiwan, wait. Adana grabbed his arm. He kissed her hard, a kiss that tasted like goodbye. Come back to me, he whispered. We have a life to build. Then he was gone, disappearing into the maze of shipping containers with half his team. Adana pushed down the fear and focused. Yun led her to a secondary control room where she could access the port's security systems. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, her systems analyst training kicking into overdrive. She mapped the explosive locations, identifying the primary charges versus the smaller triggers. There, she said, highlighting sections on the screen. If we disable those 3 points, the whole network collapses. But Yun, they're in different locations. We don't have time to reach all of them. Then we do it remotely. Can you hack their detonation system? Adana was already typing, breaking through firewalls and encryption. Sweat beaded on her forehead as she worked, aware that every second counted. Behind her, she heard gunfire, Jaiwan's team engaging Lady Han's forces. She blocked it out, focused only on the code streaming across her screen. Got it, she breathed. I'm in their system. Initiating shutdown sequence. The explosives disarmed one by one, her screen showing green confirmations. But then warning lights flashed. Someone was trying to override her commands. Restart the countdown. Adana's hands moved faster, typing code to lock them out, building digital walls between the detonators and their remote triggers. A door burst open. Tobias stood there, gun in hand, his face twisted with rage. You really think you can stop this? You're just a naive woman playing in a world you don't understand. I understand enough, Adana said, not taking her eyes off the screen. I understand you're a coward who hides behind women and lies. I understand you underestimated me because I loved you. That was your fatal mistake. Tobias aimed the gun at her head. But before he could fire, Adana spun, using the moves Sujin had taught her. She knocked the weapon aside, drove her palm into his nose, and when he staggered back, she grabbed the gun and pointed it at him with steady hands. It's over, Tobias. The explosives are disabled. Lady Han's operation is falling apart, and you're going to spend the rest of your life in prison. Sirens wailed in the distance. Yun had contacted his source in the Korean National Intelligence Service, and now police and military vehicles were flooding the port. Through the control room windows, Adana could see Lady Han's operatives being arrested, their carefully orchestrated attack crumbling into chaos. But where was Jaiwan? She left Tobias zip-tied on the floor under Yun's guard and ran into the maze of shipping containers, following the sound of gunfire. Her heart hammered with terror. What if she'd survived all of this only to lose him? What if their connection, born from a wrong number and desperation, ended tonight in blood and violence? She found them on a rooftop platform overlooking the port, Jaiwan and Lady Han circling each other like predators. Both were bloodied, exhausted, but neither willing to yield. Lady Han was older than Adana expected, maybe 50, but she moved with deadly grace. You should have stayed in your lane, Kong Jaiwan, Lady Han hissed. This is bigger than you. Bigger than your pathetic syndicate. We could have ruled together. You killed Jihai, Jaiwan said, his voice eerily calm. You murdered an innocent woman to send a message. And tonight you were willing to kill thousands more for profit and power. We're nothing alike, aren't we? You've killed. You've destroyed. You've built an empire on violence. The only difference between us is I'm honest about what I am. Jaiwan glanced at Adana, standing at the platform entrance. Something in his expression shifted, softened. No. The difference is I found something worth changing for. Someone worth being better for. Lady Han laughed bitterly. Love? You're going to lecture me about love? That African woman is using you, just like she used her full husband. She'll betray you the moment it benefits her. She already saved thousands of lives tonight, Jaiwan said, while you were trying to murder them. So tell me, Lady Han, who's really the fool here? Lady Han lunged, a knife flashing in her hand. The fight was brutal and fast. Adana watched in horror as they grappled near the platform's edge, a 50-foot drop to concrete below. She wanted to help, wanted to do something, but she knew intervening would only distract Jaiwan. Then it happened. Lady Han's foot slipped on blood-slicked metal. She teetered at the edge, arms windmilling. Jaiwan caught her wrist, holding her suspended over the deadly drop. For a moment, they were frozen, predator and prey, victor and vanquished. Let me fall, Lady Han spat. You won't get anything from me alive. I don't want anything from you, Jaiwan said. Except justice. He hauled her back onto the platform as NIS agents swarmed up the stairs, weapons drawn. She's all yours. As Lady Han was arrested, still screaming threats and curses, Jaiwan walked to Adana. He was limping, blood seeping through his shirt, but his eyes were clear and focused entirely on her. "It's over," he said simply. Adana threw her arms around him, not caring about the blood or the exhaustion or the dozens of agents witnessing their embrace. "You came back to me. I promised I would." He held her close, his heart beating strong against hers. "I keep my promises." The aftermath was complicated. Adana spent 3 days giving statements to Korean and international authorities. The evidence she'd compiled, the hacked communications, financial records, operational plans, was overwhelming. Tobias, Lady Han, Mireille, and dozens of Crimson Lotus operatives were arrested. The terrorist attack was averted. Thousands of lives were saved. But there were consequences. Jaiwan's organization came under intense scrutiny. While his role in stopping the attack earned him consideration, his criminal activities couldn't be ignored. He struck a deal with the NIS, information on international weapons trafficking networks in exchange for immunity, and an agreement to transition his operations into legitimate security consulting. Adana returned to Lagos briefly to finalize her divorce and close out her old life. Her family was horrified by the scandal, their daughter involved with criminals and international conspiracies. But her younger sister Chioma understood. "You survived," Chioma said, holding her tight. "You became someone stronger. That's all that matters." 6 months later, Adana stood at Incheon Airport again. But this time, she wasn't running from danger. She was running toward her future. She'd launched her own cybersecurity firm, specializing in protecting African businesses from international crime syndicates. She worked remotely from Seoul, bridging 2 worlds she'd come to love. Jaiwan waited at arrivals, holding a single red rose. When he saw her, his scarred face broke into a smile that transformed him from dangerous to devastatingly handsome. Adana ran to him, and he caught her, spinning her around as she laughed. "Welcome home," he murmured against her hair. "Home," she repeated, testing the word. Yes, this was home. Not a place, but a person. Someone who'd seen her at her most vulnerable and didn't try to make her small. Someone who'd protected her, believed in her, loved her for exactly who she was. They walked through Seoul hand in hand as the sun set over the city, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Adana felt peace settle over her, not the absence of challenges, but the certainty that whatever came next, they'd face it together. "You know," she said playfully, "I never did tell you what I was actually wearing that night. The night I sent that text." Jaiwan's eyes darkened with heat. "You can show me later. We have all the time in the world." Her phone buzzed. She glanced at it and froze. Unknown number. The message read, "Thank you for bringing them down. The real war is just beginning. We could use someone with your skills. And his connections. Are you interested?" "Oh, a friend." She showed Jaiwan. He read it, his expression unreadable. Then he looked at her, one eyebrow raised in question. Adana thought about the woman she'd been 6 months ago. Desperate, diminished, sending a plea to the wrong number. Thought about the woman she was now, strong, capable, unafraid. Thought about all the people still trapped in situations like hers, used and discarded by powerful criminals. "What do you think?" Jaiwan asked. "I think," Adana said slowly, a smile spreading across her face, "that we have a lot of experience dealing with dangerous people. And I think maybe that wrong number was fate telling us we have more work to do." Jaiwan laughed and pulled her close. "Then let's see what this friend wants." Together. As they disappeared into the Seoul night, the city lights twinkling around them, Adana felt something she'd never expected to feel again. Excitement for the future. Yes, there would be danger. Yes, there would be challenges. But there would also be love, partnership, and purpose. She'd sent a desperate message to a wrong number. And somehow, impossibly, it had led her exactly where she needed to be. If you've made it this far, you're part of something special. This story of unexpected connections and dangerous love is just the beginning. Drop a comment below telling us what you thought of Adana and Jaiwan's journey. Would you take a chance like she did? Could you forgive someone with a past like Jaiwan's? We want to hear your thoughts. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button because trust us, this story isn't over. That mysterious message at the end? Let's just say Adana and Jaiwan's adventures are only getting started. Like this video if you want to see what happens next, and share it with someone who loves a good romance thriller. Because sometimes the wrong number leads you to exactly the right person. Until next time, keep believing in unexpected connections and never underestimate the power of a desperate text sent to a stranger. You never know where it might lead.